Welcome to Capital H. I'm Kyle Forrest, and today we're diving into the evolving world of learning and development, training and development, enablement. Many words, many changes over the past few decades, and especially in the focus right now, given some of the advances with AI and automation and bringing learning and the flow of work to the fingertips of the workforce. Our special guest, Jayney Howson, is the head of learning at ServiceNow, and she's going to share her experiences and insights from across a career in the space, and now front and center at a really exciting intersection that I'm super thrilled to dig into. So, Jayney, welcome to Capital H. Thank you for joining us. Can we start? Why don't you just share a little bit about yourself and your career journey that has led you to the role that you're in today?
First of all, thank you so much. Thanks for the intro, Kyle. It's great to be here. I've been at ServiceNow for the last 12 months and been in this space actually I have a career really of 3/3, obviously, of 3 parts. So I kind of grew up really in advertising and marketing. I love watching people fall in love with things. And that led me into a career really into internal sales and marketing. I realized that the thing I love people falling in love with more than anything is themselves and their ability to unlock their potential. I had a few moments that we could talk about one time where I met some incredible people in my career who really, given the right opportunity and really critically given the right technology, did amazing things. And I'm like, this is what life's about. How about we unlock all this great stuff? And that took me into tech. I spent the last 10 years of my career at a different tech company. And when I was there, I was like, there's great people here. But there are 3 things that I believe is true. We all underestimate ourselves. We are all better outside our comfort zone. And talent is equally distributed, but opportunity isn't. And that is very true in technology, very true in high earning careers. And I really wanted to be part of that change. So I really navigated myself into a learning and development career. So to try and be part of that bigger change, make people fall in love with their own potential and the potential of humans. And I've spent the last 5-6 years in this space in, like you said, sales enablement, L&D, and now kind of wider learning overall.
Well, Jayney, thank you for sharing. And part of what I love that you just said is the why you made that pivot and helping folks unlock their potential. I think I've met a number of people in the broader human resources, people talent world who come from sales or marketing or other roles. And they're like, wow, I really like helping people access their potential. And I don't think enough folks appreciate the power of the career pivot to then go do that thing that you just love to do. That's incredible. So Jayney, head of learning at ServiceNow, one of the reasons I was super excited to have you come join us is because as far as I'm aware, you're one of one in terms of the remit that you have. So can you share a little bit more about the remit that you have in that role?
Sure thing. I found a couple more unicorns out there.
Okay.
So
well, we're going to have to meet them. We're going to have to bring them in the future.
So in terms of the space that I'm in, so I really do feel utterly blessed to work for the company that I work for. We're a rocket ship and we're doing incredible things. And what was true is like many organizations, it's learning that was split into various places of the business. And 4 areas usually, which is very normal: enterprise-wide L&D, so you think leader development, onboarding early in careers, sat with HR. Then there was a sales enablement organization, sat in the commercial business, as you can imagine, a tech business, so doing all of our tech, dev, engineering talent, and then all of our external curriculum, which for ServiceNow is very critical because we need to make sure that we have people in our ecosystem able to bring our platform to life, whether that be partners in the implementation space or our customers with their centers of excellence and adoption happening across them. So that sat across 4 or 5 parts of the business. We made a decision, and when I came over to the business at the beginning of last year, that we would bring that all together under our incredible Chief People Officer, who's Jackie Kenny, who's really forward thinking. And we were like, let's do something big. Let's bring this all together and solve for all of these things.
Jayney, I'd love to hear more about how was that decision made, right? That business case, because I have seen other organizations where the enterprise learning, right? One of the 4 that you talked about, sometimes it's a struggle to get funding. And it's like, oh, well, we're going to allocate funding towards the sales enablement because it sits in commercial and actually the business is funding, or the tech development, right? Because it sits in the product and engineering organization and they're funding it, right? And then actually maybe not enough funding goes to some of that enterprise learning and topics. So you brought all this together. I'm sure there was a variety of considerations, but can you walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big move. And I think there are certain parts of that business that are either huge commercial levers. Sales enablement is critical in terms of seller productivity and how much participation you're getting across your full seller estate. So there's a big focus on that always in any organization, particularly anything that's doing license-based selling. So that is a big thing to move it into a more L&D space, which you're right, doesn't have the investment. And then tech, obviously, particularly right now, we have to be really forward thinking. So 3 things I think were opportunities and risks that brought this together. The first is just the macro need. Whichever data that you read right now, between 80-90% of us are going to have to reskill in the next 5 years, less now because this data is getting older by the day, in order to reflect to the AI talent, 93 million jobs. Like, it's huge. There is a reskilling crisis is probably a big word, but it is definitely a thing in front of us. So we all knew that there's a macro need there. And that is an opportunity for ServiceNow because we don't believe you can do a tech a transformation without human renaissance. We talk about we have to take people through that. So this isn't just important for us internally, it was also important for our customers. So that was number one, there's this macro trend. Also tech innovation happening at the same time. So learning is changing underneath our feet every single day. How we build learning, how we test learning, how we design learning, how we deliver learning, hugely driven by AI and agentics. And I literally get, as I'm sure we all do in this space, 10, 20 emails a day on some great innovation that's out there.
Yep.
So that was the second thing. And the third thing was that there is a huge opportunity to be customer zero for something that we need to do for our customers. So if we believe, and we totally do, that there needs to be this human renaissance and that our technology can help people go on that journey, we have to do that for ourselves first. And we needed to do that across the full discipline of the business. So this was a great opportunity to bring it together, but it came with some real risks. What I will say is there was an additional benefit on the back of that, which was just bringing all of this talent together into one space. So we had all of these learning professionals all over the business, and we could bring them all home almost and start really innovating in this space. And I can talk a little bit about the risks and what we've had to do to have some solid guiding principles around that.
Yeah. Well, Jayney, there's a few things that you just shared that I'm really excited to hear about that I think is important for others to think about in their own organizations. One is, this wasn't an internally only focused decision. You were sensing what's going on in the market, right? Mm. The pace of change of skills, the disruption to how learning is getting done across the learning life cycle, right? And saying, hey, the way in which we're empowering our workforce or our extended customer partner base has to change, and we need to be proactive about it versus waiting for the disruption to happen to us. So you took that kind of sensing of the external, also combined with some internal things, probably saying, we've got some tremendous talent serving 4 different unique stakeholders, but there's probably some duplication of effort in terms of what they're doing, whether in terms of the technology or the vendors or the work activities. Let's bring this tremendous talent together. And by doing that, what more can we unlock in their own kind of human potential? So that's such an incredible internal plus external set of reasons.
And I'm in such a privileged position. This is dream job with land. It's an amazing thing to do. And it is incredibly hard what is happening in this space, because it's like you are trying to propel at rocket ship speed to deal with that demand of skilling that needs to happen. But underneath us, it's very crumbling ground in terms of how people learn. We're going to have to rebuild, I think, as an industry. And if we're in the space of human transformation, which I think that's what L&D really is, that how humans are transforming is changing. How you learn a new thing. I'm sure I spent a good a couple of hours, me and whatever your chosen generative AI is, and I tried a few this morning and I know I learned from that moment. That very different than we had. So I do think we're better together in this kind of period of huge opportunity and huge amount of change.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jayney, you touched on some of the opportunities. Can you highlight what were a couple of the risks you had to navigate? I'm sure there's the very simple, hey, someone owned this and maybe they didn't want to give it up, right? Or you've got 4 different areas with 4 different budgets, and you bring it together and someone's like, oh, hey, is 1 + 1 still equals 4 over here? And are we funding it the same way? Or so what were a few of the things you had to navigate on that front?
So I think there's a couple of things. There's an opportunity when you bring organizations like this together to drive efficiency and output. I actually think the need for learning is dramatically increasing. So we do have to bring it together and see, how do we get more for the same? That's going to be a thing. And also, a huge amount of transparency comes when you bring all of these budgets and people together. So there's always, as just a leader of that work, you have to learn your business really, really quickly and understand where work's happening. And are we just we have incredible people. I want to keep hold of those incredible people. So how do you, through that change, how do you keep that culture and the results? It's very much painting a plane as it's flying. So there's a couple of, like, as you can imagine, things like budgets and headcounts and numbers and building the team. I think the bigger risk, though, is, and something that I have been hyper focused on, and I think people listening to this will have seen it, you can get whiplash in this sort of experience, particularly in things like sales enablement. It can go from center to local to center to local. And what I've seen in my experience is, because an organization wants to drive consistency of quality and QA and impact by putting something in the central part of the organization. But when doing that, it loses the agility of being able to respond to the needs that it has in the market when it has it.
Yeah.
And this is particularly critical in sales enablement. The example I always use is, if you see an opportunity in utilities in the UK and you want to turn on a skilling program to make sure people can sell, that looks entirely different to a utilities company in Germany at the same time. Different language, different legislation, different opportunity, different competitors. So something that we thought about very, very early on, what do we need to have as our guiding principles to take us forward? And the first of those was to make sure we are as innovative as possible. Like, we have to continuously be on the front foot of the latest innovation that's out there, the latest thinking of product mindset, systems thinking, design thinking, all of that sort of stuff. But the second thing we built in was agility. So how do we be radically responsible for the learner at their point of need? So how do we build a model that doesn't lose the ability for that sales leader in the UK to get the learning when they need it? And we don't build bureaucracy into the system that makes that hard. So that was a major risk, and something I'm like hyper aware of, particularly as an ex-sales enablement leader. I just don't want to lose that proximity to the field. And then the third thing is, like, and every L&D person ever listening to this would say, is that impact is our hardest thing. Like, how do we measure the impact of our learning? And I didn't realize how lucky I was coming from sales enablement, how easy it was to measure the impact of learning versus everywhere else in a business. How do you drive that impact? So innovation, agility, and impact continue to be the driving principles of the team. And at the same time, we're data-driven, AI-led, people-led. We make sure those are true, but I'm super passionate about agility, because unless we can solve that, this shouldn't be a central organization. So that's something we have to get right.
Yeah. Where's the technology that the learning organization uses to do its work, right? What's the technology your end customers use to learn, right? What's the balance of individual, self-paced, very specific to a circumstance? And then I know something that has been very front and center for ServiceNow has been ServiceNow University. And so there's this balance of in-person, virtual, team, individual, enterprise learning, common set of skills or topics versus individualized to sales and tech, right? Some of those different things. So share a little bit about kind of, you've been on this journey in the last 12 months. You've made some big moves. Where are you going next?
Yeah, I think ServiceNow University is a really good thing to package it under. So if you take those 3 trends that we knew were happening, huge market opportunity, huge advancements in technology, we need to be customer zero. So in order to package that all together, we have launched, and we will be going very big this year with the ServiceNow University brand. And we talk about it as a playground of learning of the future. Like, this is everything. This is our AI-driven platform and portfolio, our learning portfolio, which includes everything in that learning portfolio you just said, on-demand learning, which now is completely free and available for ServiceNow University for anybody on demand. We have in-person training. We have deep technical simulators and labs and all of those things, we knew that we needed to do was to create a really good umbrella brand that packages everything that we need to do in this playground, as I said, like this. And I'm really passionate, and we're really passionate about creating a safe space to do unsafe things, because the skilling transformation we all need to go through in the next few years is going to feel pretty unsafe to many of us. And ServiceNow University will be this playground where you can be outside your comfort zone and do all of those things. And it needs to be multimodality. It needs to leverage all of things in AI. It needs to be really good at being able to incubate the newest solutions that are out there. So we're using AI coaches a lot right now. We're using agentic recommendation. We're looking at using agentics in our needs analysis at the beginning. So there's lots of tech happening in that space. So that's really important for us. And I think AI, it really does need to be an AI playground, whilst also recognizing all of the neuroscience and learning science that's involved in the background. So how do we use this latest technology to unlock the superpowers of every human out there to be in this new AI world? We talk about ServiceNow University is, like I said, playground for learning, but really critically, it is the university of you. So Kyle comes to this university, and because the fact it's built on a very solid data platform, so it really is ServiceNow product. So it's AI agents plus data plus workflow. So it's built on a very solid data model that understands Kyle, understands what you've done before, your profiling, your external credentials, and then what in the context of your job today and what you're expected to perform, and then delivers the learning in a predictive, personalized, pertinent way. So whether that be an in-person thing, a peer-to-peer, a mentor, a coach, a collab, which is like our peer-to-peer learning. And it does it in the point of need, like within the workflow.
Yep.
The idea of that is that we truly can transform people in the way of work, driven by AI, but essentially driving more as much human connection as we can.
Yeah.
It uses all of those things of, it's generative learning, it's very personalized, it's in the flow of work, but social learning is so critical. I really hope it gives us the opportunity to do more of that.
Jayney, there's a few things that you just shared that I want to pick out for folks. One is, I love the language around playground and a safe space to do unsafe things. Because it actually, a year ago when Deloitte launched our 2024 Human Capital Trends Report, we introduced this concept that we called the digital playground, which we said it's not a space, it's a mindset, right? How do you actually encourage people to play, to be curious, to really take some risks and explore? Because I think with the AI topic or any other transformative event that you put people through, a lot of folks have an initial reaction of anxiety or nervousness or even fear, right? What does this mean to me? What does this mean to my career path, right? And so the way in which you're framing this as this playground and place to, brings you almost back to childhood, right? And the playground was a tremendously fun place to be.
And a place that you got better at something without even knowing it. Like, growth sits on the other side of fear and all of those things. That's what playgrounds do. So I think I love your language as well around that digital playground.
Yeah. Well, and the second thing in terms of everything that you just shared is you and the organization have some very intentional business outcomes and human outcomes, right? You didn't make this move just because the business says, oh, we have ABC things that we'd like to achieve. It's no, we have these things we'd like to achieve, but that's going to mean XYZ for the humans involved, right? Whether that's the humans in your learning team, whether that's the humans in the workforce or in your extended customer and partner ecosystem, right? And so I have to imagine then as you message that to the humans, right, your customers, whether internal or external, there's probably that much more excitement and openness to diving in and explore. So can you share a little bit, like, what has the reaction been like for, whether the workforce or some of the customers and partners around the way in which you're now tackling this?
I think it's been great. I'm going to, a stat that I found really fascinating, and just on something you've just said, is that more than 60% of people in a recent report, it was a LinkedIn report, said that they were scared to reveal their skill gaps because they didn't want it to impact their growth. So they were scared to learn. Like, how terrifying is that for corporate transformation? Because we've got to take people on this journey. And I actually think it's a really fascinating difference that we're in right now to previous tech revolutions. So if you think we took cashiers away in supermarket, cashier jobs weren't there, and we can transfer them to a fully different job. We're now removing tasks, not jobs. So how do you make sure that humans don't just fill their time? And we'll only do that if we give them the confidence that they can do something else and they'll be required. And we create that playground where they can see a better version of themselves on the other side. So I think there's a ton of stuff that, yes, this is a tech thing and needs to be tech enabled, but it's a human transformation. And we do recognize that we need to take humans on that. And when you start to have this conversation, you say, we are here to help you with the human transformation, make sure that your human capital is effective and happy as possible. The reception is amazing. Like everyone wants to, they want it now. And they're always going to want more. Like it always needs to be more innovative. It always needs to be more easy to learn, more consumable. But I'll say our demand is great. We recently launched, we wanted to democratize access to our on-demand courses. There were elements that were charged for before. We've removed that paywall completely. And the adoption of the training has been great. And we really are getting more people there. And then internally, we've made sure that this is just a digital experience. We've just come back from our sales kickoff. We did the largest ever sales simulation, like a simulated sales experience. We had more than 800 teams battling against each other in this like deal scenario. So we really tried to create this like true playground where it really was safe to like push the boundaries, and it was amazing. And so people are hungry to learn. Like humans are organisms that want to grow and be successful and not get kicked out of the cave. And once you embrace it and you create that culture, it's magic, really.
And a word you just use, organism, right? The whole history of humanity in the world is adaptation, right? Change, thrive, survive, move, or like react to stimuli, right? And if you're able to do that from a place of excitement and curiosity, how much more potential can you unlock, which is tremendous.
Yeah.
Jayney, there's a lot that, some folks listening might say, okay, well, ServiceNow, incredible company, global, maybe has access to some resources that I, in my role, in my company, in my industry and sector, might not have access to. What's one or two pieces of advice that you would give to other learning or talent or workforce development leaders on where they might consider starting in a journey on a learning transformation, given everything that's going on in the market right now?
So I went to this learning event a few weeks ago where I was with my peers, and there was lots of workshopping. And we were given this task where one team had no budget and the other team had unlimited budget. And I'll tell you, the team with no budget had the better plan. And it was a fascinating thing. And I don't think resources is the problem. I think there is so much out there. There is so much amazing stuff that you can leverage. The most important thing is aligning whatever you're doing to the business priority. And we're in a really great position right now because skilling is very high up on everyone's agenda. So how do you make sure that you get hyper-focused on what the business need is and then respond to that and get those stakeholders driving it for you? We have a slogan in Global Learning and Development, which is we go over ego. There is no more of a job that is we go than learning and development. And you almost need to give the responsibility of learning over to the business and then be part of that. So get a seat at the table, right, is the number one. Like get the seat at the table and then get some people who really love, like great to have very specialized learning design people, but also just get people who just love making humans better and just get people to get excited about it. Get teams together, take teams from within the business. So we find between 2 and 3x in terms of impact if people within the business are delivering learning versus you delivering it yourselves. So that just build those kind of ecosystems around you and then leverage the resources that are out there. Like ServiceNow is just one example, thousands of courses available for free that you could just leverage within your organization on general tech skill. We're not the only people that do that. There is so much out there. How do you curate it? And then the last thing would be, how do you embed it into the way of work? So whatever your platform of choice is and your workflow of choice is, try and get the learning into that. So take the learning to the individual rather than going to them. So I think the future of learning is definitely in the flow of work. So I would get really hyper-focused. I would put your effort to bringing an ecosystem together and leveraging learning that's out there. I would put your money towards building a tech solution that's embedded in your platform.
Yeah. One of the things that I liked that you shared with that story of, hey, $0 or unlimited dollars, right? Sometimes it's almost don't think about the incremental change. What would you do if you started from scratch again, right? Or how would you do differently? And we're about to introduce in our 2025 Human Capital Trends Report this concept of zero-based work, right? Instead of zero-based budgeting, like what is the actual work that you need to do to drive the business and human outcome? And some folks might want to take that zero-based work approach to learning. Like, let's take a step back and say, what are those business outcomes and learning outcomes we're trying to drive, and how might we do it differently?
Yeah. If you start with nothing and do 1% change, we hire brilliant people and spend our time with brilliant people. We all want to do the 100%. So I think that 1% is really important. One thing I find it so fascinating that learning science tells us that you learn, depending on which data you look at, like twice as much by talking, reflecting than you do reading. So if you're going to practice for a session that you're doing, you're better like reading, and you have an hour, read for 20 minutes and spend 40 minutes just trying to say it out loud. You will remember more that way. You'll get better that way. So when you think about learning, how do you build that reflection and generation into the everyday? So what would happen if at the end of every meeting you had 5 minutes of personal reflection, or you spoke it back to the group, or like you said, you're not adding any more time, you're just adding this concept of personal growth and reflection into everything.
Jayney, this has been such a rich dialogue, and I think folks are really going to have some tremendous insights from the journey that you've taken, kind of the career in 3 parts, the focus that you have on unlocking human potential, and the then journey that you've been on the last 12 months at ServiceNow as head of learning, bringing together 4 different pieces of learning in the organization, right? Enterprise, sales, tech, and customer partner. And really then how you're thinking about some of the trends in the world of learning and creating this playground, this safe space for people to play in and grow, both in person, virtual, and tech-enabled and AI-enabled, right? So a tremendous amount of things for folks to learn from today. Any final thoughts that you have for the audience?
Well, first of all, just thank you so much. I could talk about this stuff all day. I think we're in this incredible moment in time, like a pinnacle moment in like human development in L&D and in any of us in this space. At ServiceNow, we say we put AI to work for people. And I think what we're talking about now is how do we put AI to work for people, not train people to be great at AI. How do we put AI to work to unlock human potential? And how as L&D professionals and human resource professionals, how do we make sure that the value is about those human skills? And I'm really excited. I think that's going to be the biggest innovation over the next 12 months, is that we really start to recognize and reward that human quality that's going to be so critical for AI to be successful. So it's my favorite conversation. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Jayney, for joining. And to our capital H listeners, thank you for listening in. Hopefully you really took some nuggets away from this, and get excited because Jayney will be back in the future when we're going to bring in some other learning leaders to have a little bit of a dialogue just around the future of learning at other intersections, whether other industries, company sizes, workforce segments being supported. So you'll see Jayney again on Capital H. Thanks again for tuning in, and have a great rest of your day wherever you may be.
This podcast is produced by Deloitte. The views and opinions expressed by podcast speakers and guests are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of Deloitte. This podcast provides general information only and is not intended to constitute advice or services of any kind. For additional information about Deloitte, please go to deloitte.com/about.